Blanchard Systems. I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for the DALiM ES4 Multichannel Workflow webinar. We are glad you could join us and spend some time with us this afternoon. Just to go through our agenda today, I'm going to spend a few minutes going over a few slides with you just as a form of introduction. And then I'm going to hand the presentation over to Fred Padilla, who is the CTO of Blanchard Systems, who's going to do the driving for us today. And then we'll spend some time with questions and answers. I should point out also on the line today we have Charles Blanchard, CEO of Blanchard Systems, and Graham Blanks from DALiM Software, the Director of North American Operations, and Keith Ziblich, COO of Blanchard Systems. So we all thank you for joining us. And let's just jump over here. I'd just like to go through a couple of housekeeping items with you. If you'll notice on your screen up in the towards the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a zoom button. And this will allow you to expand the image to cover your full screen, and will be better for viewing. Also, as it relates to Q&A, we will be answering your questions at the end of the webinar. And we ask you to please submit your questions through the GoToMeeting control panel. You'll see an area for questions, so just type your question in there, and then we'll go through them at the end of the webinar. Just a little bit of introduction for Blanchard Systems. I should point out that we have a rather mixed group of attendees today. We've got some existing customers. We have some of our publishing customers. We have our resellers and affiliates, and so we've tried to tailor our presentation today to address a very mixed audience. And we're going to focus mostly on the new features of ES4. Blanchard Systems, for those of you who don't know us, we're a software development and systems integration company. We're headquartered in New Orleans. We were founded in 1992. And we're the North American distributors and a shareholder of DALiM Software. We're also the developers of Send My Ad, the ad portal and virtual publisher portal for magazine planning and production. By way of introduction to DALiM Software, DALiM is a software design and engineering company headquartered in Kiel, Germany. The company has been known for a history of innovation, creating productivity workflow solutions for the media and graphic communications industries. The company was founded in 1985, and the company is known best by the very prestigious list of global companies and brands that use the software, as well as the suppliers that are involved in the resale and of DALiM software. ES4 was launched ES, I should say, as a new platform for DALiM, was launched in 2009. And as a way of just defining it, some folks are maybe familiar with ES and others not. So just to give you a sort of broad definition, that ES is an integrated media production platform that offers a complete solution for the management and production of media, regardless of final output, which includes print, web, ebook, movie, etc. And ES4 is the first product being brought to you by DALiM that actually is not solely focused on print. And so as we go through our demo today, Fred's going to show you some of the new innovations that include output to other media than print. So with that, I want to again thank you and pass the baton over to Fred Padilla, who's going to do the ES4 demonstration for us today. Fred?
Yep. Hello, everybody. Should be seeing my screen in just a second. So Gary, can everybody see me?
I can see you.
Okay. So
hopefully everybody else can.
So what we're looking at is the login screen of ES, and as Gary said, what I'm going to try to concentrate on today, since we do have a short time, and as much as ES can do, a demo could take a very long time if I tried to highlight everything. So I'm just going to focus on some of the key features that are new to ES4 over the ES3 or maybe back to the ES2 product. So we'll concentrate on things like some of the asset management type functions that they've included now, as well as imposition, some soft proofing enhancements that they've done, things like that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and log in to ES. And for those of you familiar with ES, you're kind of familiar with the interface. In ES4, it's somewhat reskinned, more icons, a little bit more graphical, easier to poke around. One of the things that I would definitely want to highlight to everyone, a lot of the control of users management has been greatly improved in ES. So now, in order to set up profiles which basically direct how people can, or what people can do when they log into the software, it's completely a graphical interface now, so you can turn off functions easily by just turning them off and on for everybody. You know exactly what's being modified for that profile for the users coming in. You know, this is a big improvement over what we had. Those of you that are used to it, much easier to be able to turn things on and off, know exactly what experience that user is going to get when they log into the software. So, you know, user management's greatly improved there. We've also seen some new features on the bottom. One thing I would highlight is now on the workflow side, we have more workflows that can be created. So in ES, you have the concept of document workflows versus project workflows in the past in ES3. So document workflows being the life that a file itself lives as it goes through ES, and a project workflow, an overall view of what's going on with the project. In ES4, we now have the ability to do specific workflows for versions. So if you're doing like publication work where you have maybe a newsstand and a subscription version or Canadian version, you can actually have different workflows defined for those. So maybe one needs to have spot color support and the other one doesn't, or anything like that. You can actually define that per version. Same thing, you can do it per section. So your cover sections as opposed to a body section could run completely different workflows defined in here. And then we now have what we call form workflows. Since we're handling the imposition in ES now, we actually can define workflows that the plates themselves actually go through. We'll see a little bit of that later. One of the things we're going to highlight a little bit later as well is enhancements in smart views. So smart views are a way in ES of customizing what a user can see. So you can limit them to one specific view, or you can use it to enhance the experience for users that have the traditional view, but give them like almost report views. In the past, in ES3, that was only possible to do at a project level, so you can see the overall progress of a project. In ES4, they've now added support for document level smart views as well. And I'll show that later, where I'll have basically a pressman view where all he can see is things that are put into a form folder. So you can limit, if you want to use this press side, give them a very simple login, and they can only see forms that they need to plate. We now have a new tab under here called Print Production. This is where we can actually support uploading of marks, so we can have marks that get uploaded in, as well as manage our imposition templates. So those of you familiar with how DALiM has traditionally done imposition in Mistral, it's JDF based, so you use applications like Preps or anything like metrics or anything like that to create JDF templates. You can upload them and manage them inside of ES, including doing splits of impositions. You can do step and repeats straight from ES. Well, it'll create the JDF imposition for you, and all that's managed through here now. That's where the marks part comes in. If you're doing a step and repeat, you can add your own marks. And they've also added some additional functions to system tools. There's a new concept of resource sharing, will show that, where you're able actually to share parts of a file or your project itself to a user that doesn't necessarily have to have a login to ES, and make it time limited, and it's basically a way to manage what those resources are, what's being shared, and who they're being shared to. So you can always view what you have there and actually turn it off if you want to turn it off. We'll go over that. It's something that they've actually added in later versions of ES3 is data import functionality, where we're now able to export workflows from one ES, import them into another ES, or even use it just to like archive off maybe workflows you're not using anymore but may want to use in the future. It can be done for users, for workflows, for metadata sets, anything like that in ES you can actually export and import and share. So it makes it a lot easier from our side on the support side to actually get your workflow and all the pieces needed to run your workflow and test it if you're having problems with a specific function. So getting into some of the real functionality of ES, one of the big changes they've made in ES4 is traditionally in ES3, everything basically had to wind up in the ES file system itself. So ES contained its own file system that was not necessarily a human readable file system easy to peruse. It was meant to completely be seen from the GUI standpoint. Trying to work more with asset management systems and add more asset management type functions or inside of ES, they've decided to go with an ability also to be able to view the file system that exists either on another server, local to the ES server, different ways of seeing it, but basically you're viewing a file system. And that's what you'll see here now under the file system setup, where you basically have this thing I called assets. This is a view of a folder that exists on my VM, basically, or on my laptop in a way. So if you see this images folder is actually this assets folder. So you'll see this demo stuff, magazine, 3 different magazines in here. And if I go in here, you'll see inside demo stuff, you'll see these different files. And basically, if I click on here, you'll see the files. So files that are uploaded or just copied into that folder will show up inside of the interface here and basically be added to it. When you set up the folders themselves inside of the I/O area of ES, you define what workflow these are going to run to. So in this case, I'm just running through a very simplistic workflow, which is more typical of what you're going to do is just maybe like something that just generates previews. It doesn't necessarily have an approval step or anything like that, because you're just trying to get assets into ES. So this lets you work if you have web native servers out there that already have a file system or file structure you want to look at. For those of you who used the traditional like Dialog 4 instead of Dialog Engine, where you actually had a full file system of customer files that were being viewed, you can now point it to that file system. Those will be imported and available inside of ES, where you can actually choose these files, copy them into a project, or copy them into a clipboard, anything like that, into a basket function. So we have kind of a view like this, and this is actually set up. What we're viewing here and the icons and the available functions we have here are set up through one of the smart views that I discussed earlier. So it's actually a customized smart view that if I zoom in all the way inside of it, gives me different functionality. So I have more kind of an asset management view where I'm viewing single files themselves. I can click through the files inside of here, and I have the specific functions I can do to those files themselves. Things I can do for files, basically download it. So if I want to download it to myself, I can do that. I can delete it. I can add it to a basket. So if I wanted to use this for later purpose, you'll see I'll add it. I'll add it to the basket. Maybe I go do a collection of files and drag them on into my project. I can also upload new files in. So from the ES GUI, I can upload files to it, or I can view them inside of the soft proofing application. So any of these files, and I might go something a little bit more interesting, a PDF. And let's see. these are kind of boring, but I can show that. So one of the things to show you is inside this view, I can launch the soft proofing part of ES Dialog, and what we're basically looking at now is the HTML5 version of Dialog. So this is going to be where the technology is going to go for soft proofing in Dialog as time goes by. Right now, the functionality inside the HTML5 soft proofing is limited. Basically, I can do annotations, track the annotations, and basically view the file. This is just like you're used to in Dialog. It is high-res viewing, so I can zoom in to whatever I'm limited to on the zoom percentage, view the file, and you'll see it's actually updating, redrawing, give me that high-res view. If I had multiple documents, I can view facing pages, things like that. I can go through files one at a time very quickly. So everything I'm doing inside here now is very quick to access, get to, and I don't have to, launch Java, which is what everybody is trying to avoid now. We are able to do annotations, so if I wanted to circle an area, do an annotation on it, I can do that. I can do text notes just like I could before. And one of the things you'll notice, and this is actually going to be true inside of the Dialog applet itself, the Java applet, which is the more enhanced, has more features, is going to be now you have basically an annotation palette. So instead of them just being thrown throughout the document with no organization, they're now going to be organized into a palette here, and you're going to be able to do things like reply on them. So if you're another user that goes in, you can accept that. You can tell it you're going to make the changes. You can actually do things like enable a check status for this. So now I've basically made this a work item that requires someone to go in, check it. Yes, I've done that function. So you can now track what's going on with these different annotations. You're able to do searches on the annotations. So if you do have these documents that wind up with 50, 60 different annotations on them, you can search for specific users' annotations. You can do sorting in different modes as well. So it helps you find specifically what you're looking for from the annotation standpoint, look at that quickly, and still be able to modify your document as you need to. With that, what they've also done is given you the ability to annotate videos on a timeline. So I'm able to take this video file on a timeline. I can play it inside the player here. So it's an HTML5 viewer. If I see something I want to annotate, I'm able to create a note. Again, I can do a text note. And then I can drag on this timeline basically how long I want that to exist. So if I want to make that note last for this amount of time, I can do that. If I want to drag this note in a different area, I can do that as well. So you'll see now if I move my timeline, basically that note will show up in that timestamp, and this note will show up throughout all of this. So again, making it easier now to annotate videos, annotate files, very quickly getting into these viewers, getting out of them. One of the things that they've done in ES4 that I really won't have time to show in here as well is they've integrated via JDF with different video rendering tools. So you're able to make broadcast quality videos tied in and controlled from ES driving other devices. So similar to how ES will drive Twist and a Twist workflow, it'll also drive other tools and now integrating with third-party solutions to do things like enhanced broadcast video. Okay, and get back out there. So along with all the asset management stuff, so I can go in here, I can view my folders, and I'm basically just browsing a folder structure here. But once obviously you get a lot of files laid around, you need different ways to organize that information, be able to view it, find the files you're looking for specifically. Now, we have the basic functions that we've always had, ability to be able to search any metadata that's inside of a file. So anything that contains the word whirly, it's doing text searching, metadata searching, finding that and pulling up those files. That's the basic stuff that existed inside of ES3. But now we've also had the ability to look at a taxonomy, for instance. So I got a kind of simple taxonomy set here where I can browse through a structure, look for DALiM products, maybe anything that's ES. So these are all my files that, through my metadata, I've set to be part of the ES products under DALiM, for instance. Also, I'm able to expand that and go into facets. So now, based on my facets, I'm able to say that I have 10 of these files that fall into, well, 6 that fall into screenshots, 1 that's documentation, another one that's, I think this one's demo files. So I can also select those and hone down basically the information that I want inside of there. So just giving me more ways to search on the metadata itself, find exactly the files I'm looking for. And again, if I wanted to reuse these now, I want to use this for this project that I have, being able to put them into the clipboard or my basket and use those from there. One thing I should have shown here as well is, the way we can set that. I could set this basically when I upload files for me to actually set that metadata, or in this case, since I'm browsing a file system, what I need to be able to do is do a function where I can look at a job ticket, basically. So this is basically my ticket or my properties for this file, and I've created a custom job ticket that allows me to define this information. So I can set up my metadata here. Here's my taxonomy that I've set up, and any other information I want. And I can customize this job ticket, do a rating system, things like that Photo Studios use a lot to rate images. I can do all those functions and build them into a custom job ticket that I can create for my files, making it look how I want it to look and have the metadata that I want to use inside the file. So, that's stuff that we're showing inside the asset management stuff. Greatly improved, great ability to work with images, work with videos, HTML files, Flash, all that works inside of the stuff that we've been talking about and can look at. To jump quickly, since time's going by pretty quickly, I'm going to jump into a project that's kind of a pre-baked project. So this is just a publication I'm looking at, kind of already partially built to save some time here. And basically what I'm looking at now is what most of you who've seen ES would recognize. It's the flat plan view. We have some pages placed already, a few pages missing, and nothing too new here. But what we have new inside of our job ticket, for one, is now we have a technical specs area where we're able to put information like what the color space, what the expected color space of the project is, and basically be able to do mapping. So if I know I have colors coming in that I need to treat a certain way, I can map those, ignore them, map to itself, convert to CMYK, and do custom mapping of colors inside of here. And that drives basically a twist workflow to do conversions for you. I now have an area without doing a custom job ticket where I can put in the prepress properties, the physical dimensions of the file, bleed, safety box information, things like that I can use inside of Twist for pre-flighting purposes. So I can use this information to pre-flight, make sure my files are the correct size. We've done this in the past with our own custom job tickets, but now that is built into the regular part of ES itself. Also in the imposition side, I'm able to do presets for shingling or rotations or offsets, things like that. If I know I'm always having to repeat that, I can set that up through here. This has existed in ES3. Some of you might have seen it, and it's kind of important for what we're going to show in a minute. Is basically the ability to create sections and create basically your sections for how your book's going to run. That's there. Basically, I'm running 4 different forms of 16 pages and a 4-page cover. And I'm able to do very quickly pages not included in the page numbering, so that I'll get a CV1, CV2, and 1 for the 3rd page, the way this is set up. And then the custom job tickets have always existed. We still have all that same functionality where we're able to set things, create job tickets, and set those as we need them. What you'll notice a little bit different in here now, they have changed the organization of how they're doing the approvals. So you'll notice now, instead of having all the approvals stacked on each other, each approval for a given workflow will show up across here, and I'm able to just quickly get to it. A lot easier to see. It's cleaned up in the interface. I'm able to go to my project workflow. As we discussed now, we have form workflows where basically I have just a very simplistic form creation workflow. So we have all those things inside of there now. We're able to go into here, and I've kind of already imposed a few of these. So we see actually we have impositions here, and I can kind of quickly go into one of these in the HTML5 view and quickly go into a plate itself. And you see how quickly it kind of just draws that. So if I needed a pressman to use this view and be able to run it on press, they're able to quickly access it this way without having to run Java or waiting for Java to load on their computers. And what I'm going to do right now is show you one of the other things. This has actually been added to the latest versions of ES3. So for those of you who've had issues with customers with Java uploading files into your ES, if you have ES, there's now an HTML5 uploader. So you see when it comes up, it's immediately HTML5. They've left the Java uploader in because for those of you that like the ability to upload a folder structure into ES, you still need Java to do that since it's Java libraries that control that. But the HTML5 uploader, very easy to use. I'm able to jump in here. If I grab missing pages here, select those, you'll see the list of files you're going to upload. If you're good with that, you upload them, you get a progress bar, shows you the progress, and goes away. Hopefully that stayed up long enough on Connect on a GoToMeeting that you were able to see that, but basically get a full progress bar, and you can leave it up as long as you want, and it keeps the history of things you've uploaded. So if I come back in here, you see the history of the 4 files I just uploaded for this session. So it'll keep that, you'll keep seeing the files that you've uploaded. So as those files come in, just normal ES stuff where it's going to go through, it's going through a pre-flight workflow right now, and they're processing through. What I'm going to do is show you kind of some of the other stuff that's involved with doing the imposition. So basically, we have our imposition area here where we're keeping track of what our forms are. And we create those going through here, just going through a little wizard that steps us through. If I want to create a new form for this, I'm able to filter based on information, obviously, so some of your printers will get a lot of these forms in here. You're able to select which info you want, which plate workflow you're going to use, and then basically go through the whole thing, and it'll come up and give you this view. And you're able to use this view to kind of preview exactly what's going on. So even before you plate it, as long as your pages are locked in position, it'll show you which pages are going to run. It'll show you basically the back and front. If you have a back and front, it'll show you the pages. You can also use a interface just like this to actually manually assign things. If you're doing just a kind of a gang type layout, you're able to drag and drop from a list of files onto the imposition and fill the imposition in as well. In this case, we're actually doing it based on page position, being or kind of our run list, since it's a publication. Just like anything in ES, I am able to actually see the workflow for this. If I wanted to reprocess this or rerun it, maybe I made a change in one of my workflows or how I'm creating my plate, I can restep this. I have full control over the workflows, just like I do in any part of ES. Each of the sections as well, and one of the things I should show is, has the ability to have a basic job ticket defined for it as well. So I can do basic color mapping differently for one section. Again, if I have a spot color on a cover or things like that, I can handle that type of thing. And I'm able to view each section. So in this case where I'm wanting to see my cover section, I can see my cover section has these 4 pages on it, and they're all right now in a pre-flight state because they failed pre-flighting. Able to go ahead and approve those. Step those through. And what they're going to go through now is a step that's new in ES, and it's basically called channel mapping. So you'll see inside of my document workflow, it's at a step called color mapping here. And I'll show the cover because that one would have failed there. What the color mapping step does in ES is checks the color space of the file against the job ticket and lets you know, in this case, it fails the file and says, nope, you failed color mapping. You'll also see kind of an exclamation mark up here. And what I'm able to do is come in here, go to colors, and it's showing me I have a process blue inside of this file that is not part of my job ticket. What do I want to do with it? I could strip it out completely, ignore it, convert it to CMYK, anything like that, map it to cyan if I knew it was supposed to be cyan, can do anything like that. When I hit OK, basically it'll go back to the tool, fix the color, send it to a twist workflow, and makes that change on the file. So I'm able to, inside of ES now, handle all my channel mapping needs for a file. I don't have to deal with a channel mapping workflow in Twist, in the Twist GUI. I can do it all inside of ES itself. So it's a good enhancement on the file there, on workflow processes there. Well, now you see, kind of gotten my files through. I could do revision stuff. I think most of you have seen that. I'm not sure how much I should get into that because we have a few more things to cover. I can just basically go through, do my approvals, and how ES is set up in the workflow to go is when it reaches a final approval and the page positions have been locked, it'll create the form on the fly. That can be customized. It can be set up kind of however you want to work, but in my workflow, it's basically I go through my different approval steps of pre-press approval, customer approval, things like that. It's now at a final pre-press approved, which is my final approval, but it hasn't generated the form yet. The reason why is I haven't locked my position. So it wants to know that you're definitely not going to change position, and you can basically, I could have built this into a workflow as well, but in this case I'm just going to do it manually, lock it. As soon as I lock it, it's now going through the form workflow, and in just a second you'll see actually a form pop up inside of here. That's going to be my imposition form, kind of like I showed before. So these forms here. So those are created as a PDF, high res that's created, and I could run through a twist workflow or do whatever I needed to do inside of here. But I can soft proof them as I need. And what I'll do is actually show, now if I wanted my pressman to get to this, and I only want them to have a simplified view, this is one of the things I can do with a smart view like we were talking about. So I can basically go to my pressman profile, log in, and if you notice in my interface, all I have, the only thing they can get to is this one view. And they'll have a list of, this is just something that I did as an example, list of anything that's in the forms folder, which is how I organize my forms, where everything gets copied into that forms folder. And I could do filtering here, filter via customer name, specific milestone. So I could have a form workflow that went through an approval cycle so they could only see the ones that have been approved. Anything like that I can handle, give them a view, and again come in here and do soft proofing. In this case, this profile is set to use the traditional Java version of the soft proofing application. So I'm able to come in here, view my proofs, just like I was doing the HTML5 view, zoom in, view those, and the pressman can actually take a look at the files and approve them, and maybe they have an approval step that actually goes ahead and plates them for them, or in this case, only be used for soft proofing press side. And let me jump back in. How am I doing on time, Gary? All right. So if I come back into actually my current customer here, one of the things we talked about is also some of the other abilities they have and things they've done with HTML5. So one of the things they've added, and this is a different soft proofing method as well, is the ability to view a virtual book inside of ES of your project. So I'm able to come in here, view the files, flip through the pages. I was playing with this earlier and have some enrichment stuff as well. But what I wanted to show right now is basically just ability in here to actually do notes. So through this view, I could use this for notes as well and even do approvals through this view. So I'm able to do that. In this case, it's kind of just a low-res view. So it's based on the preview, and you're able to go through your file, look at it in this view, go through pages, flip through your pages. You can view basically a full list of it, trash your notes. Everything can be controlled through here. Nice thing about that view is actually the ability to share it. So I have the ability to go and share my project, and in this case, I'm just going to share it to myself. I can share it via email direct out of ES, or I can create an HTML link to the file that I could include in an email, include on a website, whatever I wanted to. You can give it a start and end date. So you're saying you have the ability for these 9 days to go in, excuse me, and take a look at the file. Once that expires, you're not able to use this link anymore. When I hit OK, basically, it's giving me a URL that I can go to, copy, paste, or use inside of some HTML code. So I'm going to go into a different browser here and show you basically without logging into ES what that customer would get. And basically he's got that same view that I was just showing you. So all the same ability. He would view any enrichments that were on the file, anything like that. View through it. If he had approvals to do, he could actually approve and reject inside of here as well. Put any annotations he needed to. Everything can be done inside of here that you'd need in a quick, easy view. Just shared through a URL or an email. You obviously have the same ability to get into this if you want to, if you're logged into ES like I did before. And just to finish up, most of you probably have seen what DALiM's doing with working on with enrichment. So we're able to use the dialog applet to enrich our projects, kind of repurpose our print media with things like videos, slideshows, URL hot links, things like that inside the file. So you see basically I can go through my document, add any kind of enrichment I want, a video, be able to change whether I want to autoplay when it comes on, give controls, always loop it. I'm able to build a table of contents, things like that, all through the enrichment part of ES. What they've really improved, this goes back to early parts of ES3. What they've improved inside of it with ES4 is one is the ability to view that like we did before inside of ES without having to do the full creation of the book itself. So I'm able to quickly just view those things inside of ES itself. And the formats that they output, they've improved. So in ES3, you only had the ability to do basically a DVL and use it with DALiM's app itself, iPad app. You're now able to do an ePUB2, ePUB3, Prism XML, HTML5, or the DALiM DVL. So you're able to do all those formats. Like the HTML5 will basically give you exactly what I'm looking at. It'll create an HTML5 document that you can place on your website or link to on your website and have people go straight into it. And it's published out and usable. So a lot of, making it much easier to use for people and more purposeful, since, especially since you have ebook abilities. And Gary, I think we're probably up to time on this.
Yeah, we are. I was just going to say that we have time for a few questions. I've already gotten some questions in, but I would also mention to the people who are listening in that if you have any questions, just hit the questions tab on the GoToMeeting control panel, and those questions will come through to me, and we'll get them answered for you. So the first question I have here is probably a is probably the best one for a lot of people. It says, is the Java-based soft proofing being completely replaced with the HTML5 version? Please say yes.
It's not being completely replaced. It will stay in the product, and basically it's going to be a parallel development where they're going to be moving all of the features that the Java version does have into the HTML5 version over time. It will take them a while to do that. So the Java will keep getting developed and it will keep being supported. But you'll see things like, I believe, like early next year, hopefully the compare functionality will make its way into the HTML5 version, things like that. So you'll see features moving into the HTML5 version as they're being developed. There are some libraries for some of the things they do that are available in Java. They're not available in HTML5. So like the closed loop calibration is something that right now they don't think they're going to be able to get into the HTML5 version. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, I think so. So here we go. This wants to know that does the shared document work in tablets, for example, iPads, and can you mark it up via the iPad, via tablet, say, an iPad?
I haven't tested directly on an iPad. It is HTML5, so theoretically it would work in Safari, but as we've seen, some of the HTML5 functionality does not completely work on an iPad. Graham, I'm not sure if you know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Graham, can you add to that?
Are you talking about the HTML5 view or the DVL app on the iPad?
Unfortunately,
they said the shared document.
Here it comes, HTML5.
HTML5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I can't really answer that question. I think, Fred, you pretty much answered it.
Okay, well, we can look into that closer and get back to...
we will be expanding the Dialog Touch iPad app beyond its current capabilities. So that's a native app that runs on iOS, iPad in particular. So we'll be expanding that functionality.
There is a specific app for the iPad, Dialog Touch, that DALiM has that basically connects to an ES server, allows you to see the things you have to approve. You can do full markups, zooming, everything on an iPad, which it would probably be the preferred way to do soft proofing on an iPad with an ES system.
Well, the person who asked that question sent me a little frowning face. Maybe he'll smile now that there is a way to do that. Another question is the shared function open or behind authentication?
The shared function I showed today is basically open. It's a URL that lets people get straight in without authentication. If authentication is a concern, then you use the traditional methods of notifications inside of ES, where someone can click a link, log into ES, and get right to the file as well.
Okay.
So it was more of a way to give people a non-authenticated way to get to a quick view of a file without them taking up users, without them having to have credentials, things like that.
Good. So here's another question: is when will ES4 be available? Graham?
The current plan is to release ES4 along with Twist 7 in early December, hopefully around the time of the worldwide technical meeting, which is the first week in December.
Okay. Is the document timeout still based on time, hours, minutes, seconds? Or can you select the time via a calendar the correct way?
I'm not sure I know what document timeout he's talking about.
Okay. Well, we can follow up on that one. It's in the job ticket setup. I see here some addition to that question.
Yep, it's still the same.
Okay. And does ES4 address multi-page covers for a publication?
Multi-page covers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay.
It does handle multi-page PDFs. If you wanted to, you can split them. You can keep them as multi-page. It does handle versioning, if that's the route of that question. So you could have, I didn't show that here, but you could have multiple versions of a cover. So I'm not sure.
Well, we can follow
one
up
of those
with
answers that question
individually.
Perhaps
Sure.
Fred, that's related to a gatefold on a cover.
Could be.
Okay. In that case, basically ES4, I mean, if you have an individual file and it's a gatefold that's to cover position, there's not much ES necessarily needs to do with that, as long as the imposition is set up, the JDF imposition is set up correctly to handle it for that position slot. If it's not, and you do have an imposition that once it has 3 pages, ES can easily be programmed using Twist as its engine to split it into 3 files if you wanted to, or take 3 files and combine into 1 if it's what you need. So as long as you know what logic you have to build using ES and Twist, you can kind of build any scenario you need to.
Okay, good. Thank you, Fred. Well, I'm going to take one. I'm going to pass on one more question, and then we're going to, bring our webinar to an end. And the question here relates to, again, to the HTML5 viewer, and that is that will closed-loop the color managed profile soft proofing be available via HTML5?
You want me to answer that, Gary?
Yeah,
Fred?
Graham, I was going to say, please please answer that.
Yeah, one of the limitations that we have today with HTML5 is that we have no ability to control a colorimeter or access a color accurate display like an ISO. So within HTML5, you'll be able to manage your profiles as you are today, and you will be able to view in a color accurate environment. However, there will not be any closed loop connectivity that connects to your display that ties back into the system. So there's going to have to be an element of trust that whatever display is being used has been calibrated and all the correct profiles have been uploaded. We are looking at ways to allow for a closed loop color accurate display in HTML5, but that may still require some degree of Java, since the libraries we use today for controlling the colorimeter and accessing the ISO hardware calibration is Java based. So that's something we're still working on.
Okay. Well, thank you, Graham. Thank you, Fred. I want to thank everybody.
I wanted to touch.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Fred,
just real quick. I did see another question that was about licensing, and just wanted to make sure that was clear. That, and Graham, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the URL sharing that I showed would not take a login basically into ES. It would not be a licensed user logging in. Is that correct, Graham?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, just see there's some clarification as it relates to the question about multi-page covers. So it was, gatefolds and 6 pages or 6 or 8 page covers.
Right.
Okay.
And that would be handled just like I mentioned. As far as positioning inside of ES, it would basically just be, like CV1 would be a gatefold file. It'd be able to be soft-proofed. It wouldn't cause an issue. ES wouldn't care at all, as long as the imposition that you use it to impose it could handle it properly. It was the right size for that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Fred. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for participating today. We'll be following up with you in the near future. If you're interested in learning more about ES4, we can arrange for a personalized demonstration of ES4 for you. And everybody have a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.